We have today a legend, an icon, an Olympian. I am honored that you even considered coming on my podcast, man. And it's just an honor to even be in your presence, bro. This man's name is John Carlos. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing fine, man. It's my honor. You left out one word.
Man, correct me.
Friend.
Friend.
So at the end of the show, I would hope that I would meet that standard. Then you can close out with that statement with friend at the end.
That's an honor, man. I hope I live up to those, man. So if you don't know, this is my co-host. His name is Jonathan Grimes.
Jonathan Grimes.
He was on the plantation with me in the NFL, man. So we decided to go on this journey, in this podcast journey, man. But first and foremost, I just have to say, man, thank you for everything that you've done and everything that you are and continue to do for people that look like yourself and myself, man.
Well, man, I just thank God for waking me up every day and make me stay on the point, to recognize who I am, where I'm going, and set an example for those that's looking for the way out.
For sure, man. I feel that. And for people that don't know, my listeners that might not know who John Carlos is and live under a rock, man, he was part of one of the most, if not the most, iconic moments in the 20th century. And if you could pull it up on the screen, he protested in the 1968 Mexico City Olympics with his teammates Tommy Smith and Peter Norman.
Correct. And
this image right here is probably one of the most iconic pictures in civil rights history.
Well, you said it was number 7. I think.
Oh, they ranked him?
I think, yeah. They had him ranked. Anywhere from 10 down, that's a plus. But it's people say civil rights history, but it's real war history.
Yeah.
It's universal. Yeah. Everybody looked at that, said it was a black power move, and if I was to look at that picture and say, well, if I was to put that to black power, it'd be my black ass running down that track. But in essence, what it was a humanitarian issue.
Right.
We was concerned about human rights,
right,
which encompasses us and a lot of other people as well.
Right.
And just like, with Mr. Kaepernick right now, where they putting a spin on his thing, talking about it's not about, the police homicides or brutality. It's
right,
about the national anthem.
Right.
And that's the same type of spin they tried and put it on for me as well.
Right. And so before we jump into that moment, man, I want to give people a little bit of background of where you're from and how you got to the point of making the biggest stand one can make. So you grew up in Harlem, New York. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the climate like in Harlem, New York in those days?
Well, as I came through June 5th, 1945, I came in, with a blast. I had to move around. The doctors had to move me around my mama's womb for 2 different times. The third time I moved, doc said, look like this kid's got a mind of his own. We better leave it alone. They were moving me around because they knew I was going to be a breech baby the way I was moving.
Okay.
But my mom explained to me that they were concerned about my legs or arms or something being broken. And when I came into the world, I came in feet first.
Oh.
So it gives you some indication that my big feet was going to be doing something in my history. I grew up there with a pretty sharp eye. I saw white flight, where you see white influx now. If you look at the major cities right now, white folks are coming home, opposed to when I was through. We had a multicultural community in Harlem.
Right.
But one night I went to bed. Next morning I woke up, I saw all the white folks in the community packing their trucks and packing their paddy station wagons,
right,
just stacking up everything. And I remember asking my father, I said, Dad, where they going? He said, son, I don't know where they're going, but I would think they're probably leaving because they don't like the fact that the domesticated workers are now their next-door neighbors. I guess he felt it was kind of difficult for me to have someone cleaning up the dog poop and you my next-door neighbor as well.
Right.
So they decided to move out to the suburbs. Then I began to look at what happened once they left. It was a transition that took place amongst a bootleg liquor called King Kong. It was like if I was to look at King Kong and put it parallel with something today, it would probably be PCP. Guys would drink this liquor and go to the roof and jump to their death. It was hallucinating. And then when King Kong dissipated that night, a thing called heroin or smack or mud came into the neighborhood. I began to realize that it was 2 types of drugs at a very early age. There was a professional drug, which doctors used, lawyers used, And I know for a fact that they did it because my mom used to go with her sister to clean the abortion offices. And my brother and I used to go and we used to look up in the doctor's office and look in the drawer, and they had a big pile of white powder in there. It made me understand through accident, because I took my finger and put it in the powder and touched my face, and I confronted my mother about it. And she was upset quite naturally about me going in the drawer, but I wasn't going to steal anything. I'm just going because I'm a young boy and I'm curious. Right. And then I realized that they had this white powder was for the professional people. And then I realized this brown dust, this heroin, was for the grassroots people, you know, like the fathers and the brothers and the uncles and some of the mothers in the community. And it was sprinkled at a very precarious time, because black men at that time, when I was a little kid, was disenchanted with the fact that they couldn't be the father. They couldn't be the husband and feel comfortable in those roles, because being the father, you're supposed to be the breadwinner. Right. There was no decent jobs or there was no job. Then when they decided, I can't take anymore. And let me give you a scenario as to why they couldn't take anymore. Here's your daughter come up to you. She said, "Daddy, it's my birthday. You've been promising me all the time that you're going to give me that birthday dress. Are you going to still give me that dress, Daddy?" "Yeah, baby, I'm going to get you that dress." Knowing when he turned the corner and dig down in his pocket, he don't have nothing but holes in his pocket. Before he can digest that, here's his son come and say, "Daddy, if I don't get no tennis shoes, if I don't get no sneakers for PE, I'm going to fail my class." Now you fail the education. He look in his other pocket, he got bigger holes. So now he looks up in the mirror one day and he realizes that, hey, you know, for the first time I'm checking out this guy in the mirror and I don't like him. So how do you not like yourself? Because you can't be the man in the house. You can't be the breadwinner. Your woman is losing faith in you as her man. Now I'm looking for escapism. And just like they did Billie Holiday in the movie, "Hey, lady, take this and help you forget your problems." Right. Well, a lot of black men went to this drug, not knowing that once you go, it's hard to return. You're going to be sprung. So like for the last 60, 70 years, you see a lot of young black kids growing up in Harlem and all across this country with no fathers in the house. Yeah. Because when you sit back and you think about slavery and the viciousness of slavery and what they did to us. So one white Christian had the idea, man, it's wrong what we did. We have to pay restitution. We have to do something to try and make the slate even. So what we'll do, we'll create a thing called welfare. And in welfare, what are we going to do? We're going to give you some public assistance. We're going to cut a check for you. Or we're going to see that you get food stamps or what have you, some government cheese. But what was the first rules that they set? If you looked at their rules was parallel to the rules that they had when you came in on the slave ship. The first rule was that you could not have a man in your household. So if the welfare woman was to come to check on you or the welfare man was to come and check on you and you open your door, they'll walk right on by you, even though you said good morning or hello. They'll walk by you.
These were the rules back then?
Absolutely. It's still the rules today. They changed the name from welfare to social service, but the attitude is still the same. Really? There can be no man in the house. They walk in, they look under the bed. Before they say hello to you, they look under the bed. They're looking for a man's shoes or slippers. They look in the closet to see if they saw a man's trousers. Or they look in the ashtray to see if they saw a man's cigar in the ashtray. And if they saw any indication that there was a man or a male figure in the house, they cut off your stipend right there. So how are you going to raise 3 or 4 kids? The average black family back at that time had 3 to 5 kids. Now here, Papa's gone, knowing that he ain't going to come back. And then mama's out there trying to do the best she can, and she might be chipping a little bit too with the frustration of trying to raise our kids with no help. Right. So these are the type of things that I saw as a young kid coming up. Look up and see the fire department. I don't see anyone that represents me in the fire department. Now, in my neighborhood, you walk up, it was a 4-bedroom apartment or a 5-bedroom apartment. When you come to the door, the kitchen is right off to your left side. Now, here's a situation where my father was a shoemaker. So I see everything when I come home for lunch. We used to walk home from my grade school to the house. And I remember one day I'm sitting there, and time to go back, and it was a fire. So we thought. Someone pulled a fire alarm, and what happened was they had gone up to the house, and they could see as soon as they went through that front door, that someone left some beans or some rice or something on the stove, and it just singed the beans. The whole room lit up, smoke coming through the window, but no fire. They would go through that apartment and break up every piece of furniture 4 rooms down, throw out in the main street and throw out in the alley. And one day I went to my father and said, Daddy, why'd they do that? I remember my father looked at me like, son, what do you mean why'd they do it? It was a fire. This is what they do when it's a fire. I said, Daddy, you need to come outside with me right now. What's the matter, son? I don't have time. No, Daddy, come. You need to come now. I need to show you something. He stopped what he was doing and go outside, and I pointed to the stuff. I said, show me where anything is burnt. That's the first time my father took note, was when I told him that. He stopped what he was doing, went around to the alley to look for fire. Wasn't none of it burned up. The same representation you have in government today, if you're not in the room, who's representing you? If you're not one of the firemen, who's representing you when they come in? These are the issues that I saw as a young kid, and at the same time looking around to see who's around here that's going to make change.
Right.
When there was no work and there was drugs, there was no food in the cabinets. Ice box. Most of them didn't even have ice for the ice box. So you sit back and you say, well, how can people live like this? And I saw a little white guy on TV one day called Robin Hood. The guy impressed me because he wasn't concerned about man's law. He was more concerned about God's law in terms of being fair play. So he wasn't worried about the sheriff of Nottingham or the king. He said, you come through Nottingham Forest, you're going to pay a tariff. Well, when he made them pay a tariff, it opened my mind to make me realize that if they're going to bring them freight trains out in front of the Yankee Stadium, that's my Nottingham Forest. You're going to pay a tariff. So I went and got some of my partners, and we would go over there and we would hit the freight trains. And I remember my partners telling me we're going to have fat pockets. And I told them, no, this is for people in the neighborhood. I said, this is for your house as well as the other guy's house. I was secure. I had a mother and father. My father had a shoe shop. But a lot of my partners, their fathers was missing. They didn't have no food. They didn't have no clothes. So we would go over and hit them freight trains.
So how old were you when you was playing Robin Hood?
Probably about 12, 13, 14 years old.
So you were this politically aware at 12 years old?
Oh, I was more, by the time I was 7, 8 years old, I was politically aware.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't new for me. Long time before my parents pretty much understood me, I would get my ass whipped. Not because I was a bad kid, but because I was doing things that most kids wouldn't do. I'd go and do something and didn't have to worry about repercussions outside of my parents. I would always tell them if I came through somebody's house and gave them some groceries, and I would be running sometimes from the police and have to climb them utility poles. They was clothesline poles for us, and push off the pole 4 feet in the air from the pole to the fire escape, and run through the house and tell them, say, whatever you do, don't let my father hear about this. Well, it was 2 detectives, and this is how I got started in track and field. It was 2 detectives, Mr. Lester and Mr. Bryant. They came to me. Well, actually, they went to my father first because they all used to gamble together on the weekends. And they went to my father and said, Earl, there's been some break-ins over at the Yankee Stadium. So we think we know who's doing it, and you need to tell Johnny. Well, my father stopped them right there in his tracks and told him, said, no, Mr. Lester, he's over there at McCoon's Park, which is where they built the new Yankee Stadium today.
Okay.
He said, he's over there at McCoon's Park right now. So they came over and they had the police block the whole park off. They came in and they found me and 2 of my partners. They told my partners to go sit up against the fence. And they said to me, now, Mr. Lester was about maybe 5'11". I don't think he was quite 6 feet. And Mr. Bryan was about 6'6", big red bone, big hands. And Mr. Bryan said, go on, Mr. Lester, tell him. So Mr. Lester told me, he said, listen, John, there's been some break-ins over the freight yards. We think we know who's doing it. We can't do anything until we catch him. And then he got real close to my face with his face, and he said, and we gonna catch him. And took his nose and pushed his nose up against mine. We gonna catch him. In other words, you better slow your roll.
Yeah.
So Mr. Bryan said, well, go on, tell him the rest. He said, oh, yeah, you have a talent. Oh, yeah, what talent is that? He said, you're a runner. And when he said I was a runner, I smirked. And Mr. Bryan smacked me on the left side of my face, and his fingers landed on the right side of my face. He smacked me, I saw stars. He said, don't you ever disrespect Mr. Lester. And I said, I'm not disrespecting Mr. Lester. I said, he said, I'm a runner. I said, everybody in the neighborhood runs. And when I was thinking about everybody in the neighborhood, I thought specifically about my mother. Because from the time my mother went to school, to the abortion clinics, I told my mother she can go back to school. She could be a doctor herself. Well, she went back to become a nurse. So she took a job, gave up her nights for my man to get a little extra money, so she used to go to work at Bellevue Hospital at night. And I remember my mother went out this particular night, She about 10:30. She used to leave every night. She come back must be about 11 o'clock, 11:15. Legs bleeding, stockings all torn up. So my brothers and everybody was all upset. So my mother says, everything's okay. I just need some Mercurochrome, some iodine. I'll be cool.
Mercurochrome.
Just clean it up. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, man.
So my father said, nah, we're going to find this individual. My mother said, no, everything's cool. Don't worry about it. And then she held up her purse. She said, I got my purse back. And right away, everybody went, how you get your purse back? She said, I ran him down and got my purse back. So when Mr. Bryan said that, Mr. Lester, I thought about my mother. Everybody's a runner. And they told me, said, no, you're special. And they sent me to the New York Pioneer Club. And that's actually how my career got started. And I might tell you where everything came together. It made me understand that the visions that I had as a young individual, God gave me this athletic platform that have a springboard into whatever my vision and my mind was relative to society. I learned early in the game it wasn't about medals, it wasn't about place. It was about the best that you perfected your game for what you wanted. The better I made myself run, the more they're going to come to me with the mic, then I have opportunity to speak on the issues I want to speak on. They can ask me anything they want. It depends on whether I want to go to that part of the section of the pool they're talking about or whether I want to go to my own section.
Right. I appreciate you sharing the story. I didn't know that was how you got your first start at track.
Oh, yeah.
Because I grew up in a track background as well. My father ran track. My brother ran track.
Right.
One of my boys here, he runs track too. So as you maneuvering along and your track career starts, but you always had this love for social activism.
Well, I was actually before track and field. I was a swimmer. I used to tell them I was the best Harlem bathtub swimmer there was. I actually wanted to go to the Olympic Games for swimming. The first time I heard anybody in context of swimming, they talked about a woman swimming the English Channel. I didn't know what the English Channel was, but I knew what swimming was. And I remember, and then incidentally, let me just make it clear. When I was a little boy coming up, radio was our TV.
Right.
99% of the activity at that time was radio, Johnny Dollar and Ace and all them guys. So when I heard about this woman swimming the English Channel, well, Pop, what's the English Channel? So he's telling me what the English Channel was. I said, well, Daddy, did she swim with a knife in her mouth? And he, what do you mean did she swim with a knife in her mouth? Well, isn't there sharks in the water? I'm thinking she got to fight her way through. I said, and before he could digest that, the next question was, well, Daddy, what she do when she have to go to the bathroom? You got to go to the bathroom sometimes. I didn't know they'd take him out the water, let him do it, then drop him back in the water. So he said to me, he said, yeah, that's what's happening, right? So he said to me, he said, well, son, I swim just like a rock, straight to the bottom. He said, but I'm going to find out. And when he came back, he told me, he said, listen, and just as he's getting ready to tell me this, they come on the radio again, talk about the Olympic Games. And I said, Daddy, what's the Olympic Games? And he told me, he said, son, that's when all the countries, all the nations in the world come together for one big athletic event, the stronger of mind and stronger of body to represent their country. Well, right away, I'm asking Daddy, did they ever have a black swimmer to represent America? And he said, no, sir. I said, well, Daddy, I'm going to be the first black swimmer to represent America. And I mean, when I grab on to something, I'm going to stay until I accomplish my goal. So I wanted to be this swimmer, and my father let me go for about a year and a half. And one day I look at him, and I could see he was hurting inside. They have to tell me something. You know, like when your father or your mother got to tell you something, and it's killing them, they have to tell you. And he called me over. He had a petition while he was back there banging on them shoes. And he called me the petition. He told me, he said, Johnny, he said, listen, I got something to tell you, and I don't really know how to tell you, but I'm going to tell you. He said, you're never going to go to the Olympics without a swimmer. And I kind of like pushed back. What are you talking about, Pop? I'm the best in Harlem. I'm the best. He said to me, he said, no, son, you're not going to be able to go. And I said, why? And he did this. Now, when he did this is the second time I saw it. I saw it in church with Adam Clayton Powell's church in Abyssinia Baptist Church when I asked him something about Adam Clayton Powell being a white man, and he's telling me, no, he's black, and then told me some things about, well, he's not passing. And I don't know, what do you mean passing? He said, well, he's not overzealous like some black fair-skinned people. They want to be passed into the white world. And I asked him, I said, Papa, you tell me that black people are ashamed of being black? And he told me, he said, no. He said, although some of them are overzealous, it made me trying to figure out what that word meant. and that's the first time he reflected to the skin thing with his hand.
Right.
So back at the situation about swimming, and he told me, he said, "No, son, because of the color of your skin, you're not gonna be able to be a swimmer." And I said to him, I said, "Pop," and he said, "Well, listen, son," he said, "where would you train?" He said, "You lose 2 or 3 of your partners in Harlem River every year." True. He said, "You can't go to the public pool, everybody in the pool trying to cool off." He said, "You can't go to the ocean, it's too rough." He said, "Swimmer have to train 3 times a day. Where would you train?" And I'm telling him, I said, "Well, Papa, I'll join a club." And I said to him, I said, "Well, we can't join a club?" He said, "No, son, we can't join the club." I said, "We can't afford it?" He said, "Oh, no, I can hustle up the money for that." I said, "Well, why can't I go?" Yeah, the first time he did it, I thought he had a bug bite.
He pointed to his skin. People can't go. People can't see. He's pointing to his skin.
Rubbing, right. So I remember he asked me when he got done talking to me. He looked at me. I probably looked so sad. He said to me, he said, "Are you gonna give up?" I said, "Nah, Papa. I just find another way." Now I didn't think about that with track and field because I was going to be a boxer and I was a pretty good boxer. But my mother talked me out of that. So, God, he's working, man, every day. Because that vision that you see there, when I was about 7, 8 years old, God gave me that same vision in a vision that came to me out of nowhere. And even to this day, at 72 years old, I sit back and I always wonder to myself, why did God dig down into the beaches of the world and pull out one little grain of sand with my name on it? And I always say, when I look at people on this planet and think about how many was before me, how many is in my lifetime, and how many going to come after me. So, but that many people, all I can do is look at grains of sand in the beaches in the world and put them together and say, each grain of sand is a person. And he pulled up a grain of sand, he threw it on the table with my name on it. He said, "Listen," he said, "you could be a part of this." He said, "You don't have to do it, but you can do it. The choice is mine." I'm sure he gave everybody that choice. Just that everybody wanted to swim downstream. I thought the prize was upstream. That's the way I'm going to keep going.
Right.
So when I had this vision, it's such a profound vision that I had because I was in
Explain that vision. What?
I was in a forum, man. It looked like a field to me, and I'm standing on a box. And I could see all these faces around this forum. And everybody was excited about something that I did. Now, God never showed me what I did in this vision. He showed me the reaction of what was happening in the vision because everybody was yippee-ki-yay and it was with excitement. And it took a minute for it to dawn on me, as young as I was, that they must be applauding for me because I'm the only one out here. And I'm right-handed. I always say, man, I laid a lot of guys down with this right hand. But in this vision, as a little kid, when you're a little kid, 7, 8 years old, and you go to wave, you ain't waving like that. You're trying to put your hand up as high as you can get it.
Right.
And when I put my hand about like where you see it in that vision, in that picture right there, it froze in time. And the reason it froze in time is because all the joy and the happiness they had instantaneously turned to anger and hate. And it sent me into a nosedive because I was scared. And when it was all said and done, when we went to dinner that night about maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock, I remember my father sat us down. We used to always eat with the family. And my father said, "Johnny, what's the matter?" I guess he could see I was traumatized. I said, "Daddy, I was in a movie." He said, "You was in a movie?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What happened?" I said, "Everybody was happy about something I did, and then they got mad at me, and they started throwing things and spitting at me and calling me names." And I remember my father brought me into his rib cage, and he said to me, he said, "Son, ain't nobody gonna bother you." He said, "My job is to love you, protect you, feed you, house you, and see that you get a good education. Nobody's gonna bother you." And he reached over my head and he said to my mother, he said, "Vi, it looked like God's got something special in mind for this kid. We're gonna have to wait." I didn't put the 2 and 2 together until I was actually on that victory stand. Because when I got up there, everything that happened in that vision came crystal clear in my mind because it was the exact same thing. Only difference is I was a grown man.
Was it like a deja vu feeling? Like you felt it before?
Man, it was everything crashing down at the same time because intertwined with that, I was listening to the stories that my father gave me, what he had to deal as a young black man in America in the First World War.
Right.
I was thinking about what had happened when I was down there in East Texas State in Commerce, Texas. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of things that I gave thought to relative to maybe why I am the way I am. Because, I had an experience with Dr. King one time, and he made a statement that kind of made my life come full circle, because I used to go do things and I never had a caption for it. I just did it. And I asked him, I said to him, I said, Dr. King, why would you go back to Memphis if they threatened your life? And he told me, he said, well, John, you know, I have to go back and stand for people that won't stand for themselves. And John, I have to go back and stand for people that can't stand for themselves. And I've done that all my life, but I've never had a caption or a phrase or anything I could put on until he said that, because what he was talking about, what he was doing, is what I've been doing, man. Like my mother said, since she was knee-high to a grasshopper.
Right.
And feel good about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like I'm on a mission. I don't have no bones about, you know, when I first came through, started out, people say, oh, he's crazy, because I always went against the grain. If I had to
I can relate.
set some trees on fire to make them realize that everybody ain't going for the goat. You know, I had a situation with some trees one time in Harlem River houses in New York. My mother used to go to work, as I stated, at night. So in the morning, she would come home. This is in the summer. So we might be in the pits playing stickball, and all the other mothers would be sitting around the pits on the bench. And my mother would come in, and she would see the ladies out there, and she would wave hi, and she going upstairs. Well, this particular day, she came home, and I went on upstairs behind her, and I said to my mother, I said, Mom, how come you never talk to the other women downstairs? How come you never sit down with them? And before my mother could open her mouth to say anything, I asked her, are you stuck up? And my mother looked at me, and she said to me, she said, what did you say? Like a dummy, I repeated myself, are you stuck up? And when I looked at my mother, first time I ever seen my mother with tears in her eyes. And my mother said to me, she said, no, Johnny, I've never carried myself to think that I was better than anybody. I've never raised my kids to think they were better than anybody else. Why would you say that? I said, Mom, you never stop and sit down with the women on the bench and talk to the women on the bench. And my mother said something to me. She said, Johnny, you know, I work in the operating room, and I can't have rashes and sores on my body. She said, I can't sit down there because of the caterpillars. And I don't know whether you know about caterpillars, but they breed so fast until there just be thousands of them. So like if they don't come and spray them trees, they just keep coming.
I didn't know that about
Oh,
caterpillars.
they're vicious. And if they're so fragile, if it drops out of a tree and it creates a web like a moth or a spider,
Right.
and he'll drop out of the tree, and if he hits you up in your neck, by the time you go to try and take him off your neck, he done bust. And by the time you get your hand down to your side, you got a rash on your neck. So when
I appreciate the
my mother told me that,
caterpillar.
I went to the manager of the project the next morning, because I said, my mother's right. So I went to the manager. I don't know, I must have been about maybe 14 years old. And I said to the manager, I said, listen, we got a problem. He said, what are you talking about? I said, the caterpillars. And he told me, he said, get out of my office. I said, man, we got a problem. I live here. He said, get out of my office. And I never knew until that time that they had a panic button, because he had a little button under his desk next to the project cop was there and one of the guards. And he said, take him out of my office. And I remember wrestling away from them and broke back in his office and said, man, you got 48 hours. If you don't handle it, I'll be back. And the cop looked at me, he said, Bill said, are you threatening him, John? Are you threatening him? I said, no, it's a money back guarantee. If he don't take care of it, I will. And 48 hours came and left. I went to the gas station, got a can of gasoline, went back, told all the parents not to go upstairs or go down the other end of the project. And then I started lighting the trees up. And, you know, everybody thought, oh, Johnny, he just lost his mind. He's crazy, crazy Johnny. And then when we had to go to court, because eventually they wrestled me to the ground, I burned up 3 trees. Trees are doing fine, I might add, today. They remember Johnny, though. And when I went to court, I remember the judge asked my father, said, Mr. Collins, does your son have any mental deficiencies? So my father looked at him and said, none to my knowledge, Your Honor. And the judge said, well, Mr. Collins, why would he do what he did? My father said, that's a good question, but here he is. Ask him. And then when I went to explain to the judge why I did what I did, then they asked the manager of the project to come up and asked him, said, how often do you spray the trees? He said, we spray the trees every year. So he said, well, do you have any paperwork with you? And the manager said, no. He said, well, okay, this is a good time to take a recess. We come back, bring your records with you. So the judge was smart. I didn't know how smart judges are. We came back from recess, and incidentally, my father was telling me on the way down there, and when we went to lunch, he's telling me, "Well, son, don't be upset if you don't come home with me." In other words, he's preparing you, that you will come back, right?
This might be it.
Right, that's what he's telling me, right? So when we got back, and he called the manager back up, and he said, "Did you bring your records with you?" And he came on with a little folder, one little thin piece of paper. He brought it out and gave it to the judge. The judge said, "What's this?" He said, "Well, Your Honor, my secretary is not well, and she's out ill today, and I don't know where she keep the records." Judge said, "Okay, no problem. Have a seat." And he says, "Is there anyone from the New York City Housing Authority?" He didn't call the office, went down there, told him to send somebody down. So the little old guy come up there, man, and he got one of those brown folders, where you flap it over, it look like an accordion. You tie it up.
File folder.
Bustling papers out of it. So he said, "Let me ask you a question." After he took the oath, he said, "Does New York City Housing Authority issue out stipends for insects and rodents and caterpillars and rats and roaches?" And he said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, how do you know they did the job?" He said, "Well, it's on the honor system, Your Honor, because we don't have enough staff to go around and check everybody. So what they have to do is sign off that they did the job." He said, "Well, do you have your record for the last 10 years? He said, "Yes." He said, "Check down there and see how often Harlem River Hollers signed off." He looked, he said, "They signed off for the last 15 years. So by that time, now the people from the project was at the trial too. So they started mumbling then because they know that they ain't sprayed. I knew for a fact that they hadn't sprayed since I was in the little kiddie wading pool. Okay? So when it all boiled down, now I'm starting to look like the hero. They starting to raise me up high. They asked the manager to give him his keys. They fired him right there in the courtroom. All the people in the neighborhood was happy. I guess because I brought attention to the fact that we were being treated as second-class citizens.
That's what's crazy about the story is it's a great analogy for what you would become known for.
Right.
And the fact that you had this character in you since you were a kid is even more telling, and it's even more impressive because it wasn't your first rodeo. You had been facing the Robin Hood from taking from trains and making them pay their tariff, to burning trees when people thought you shouldn't burn trees, but you were doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. And so when you go do this protest I think this was the first globally televised Olympics, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. It was first universal television,
right.
And it was the first time it was ever in Technicolor.
Right, and that's crazy. So
it was the first time it was in a third world country.
Man, so the first time all of this happens, you just happen to be the guy to make it happen. And so, and it's a good juxtaposition of actually what happened. And so you guys do this, and you come back, and you had a great quote that I heard. I think it was in your book, or maybe it was in an article, but it said you were talking about people that were around you, people like you that were around you. That said the fear, they fear what is happening to you might happen to them. And so you guys got chastised, and you guys got blackballed from jobs.
We got whiteballed.
We got white ball.
Blackball.
You're right, man. You're right. I need to check that. My apologies.
That's something they taught us a long time ago, right?
Right.
Let me just say something before we go on.
No. Do your thing.
Think about what you just said.
Uh-huh.
We got blackball.
Right.
Okay. Now, where is black most pronounced in society? When do they say black is most progressive, most positive?
When you talk fiscally, but talking about money.
There you go.
When you're in the black.
There you go. We're in the black. You know why?
I don't.
Because we always produce the most money for them. If you sit back and think about it, any football, basketball, baseball, jockeys, motocross, black people is the one that raised that capital. So they say it's only fair that we say in the black. Because we are into the black. Okay? But see,
my apologies,
like that,
man.
Little stuff like that, man, we don't really pay attention to.
Yeah.
We don't really pay attention
and especially now because there's a generational gap, right? And so the era I grew up in isn't like the era you grew up in. I grew up in like what they would call the crack era.
Right.
And so it was like highly gang influenced, and it was a lot of self-destruction for various reasons. Mm-hmm. But the era that we grew up in isn't the same, and it's like the era now that's going on. I can't really relate to that much. How much do you relate to either my era or this current era as far as social issues is concerned?
If you just sit back and look at it like this, man. What happens when you take a snowball at the top of the hill and you roll it around a little bit, give it a little stability, and then put it on the edge of the hill and kick it off. What happens?
It's bigger.
As it going down. You don't need to do nothing to it now because it take care of itself. Well, that's the same thing happened to our society. When you sit back, you think about the black society, you think the fathers wasn't around. So, okay, how do we start taming black people? Let's give them a boom box. Let them play their loud music, okay? Then what else do we do? Let's put some knobs on the boom box. So now we got the boom box, now we got the TV. So that was your education. Because most of us didn't even have the sense to realize that, man, we're supposed to go to school, not through school. Because if you sit back here, we are today in 2017, and our black kids, man, are still going through school. We don't understand the effort and the consequence of not having an education.
Right.
You know, I used to tell them every day when I was teaching, I said, man, you know why white people got dimples? And they said, well, why do they have dimples? I said, man, it's like this. I say, the mother might be a teacher. The father might be a teacher. I say, now you go back and you say, Mom, how come you got them dimples in your chin? Or Dad, how come you got a dimple in your chin? I said, well, son, I'm going to tell you one day. And one day, parents tell them, say, you know something? I got 7 classes a day. Out of each class, I kick 15 blacks out, and I kick 15 Hispanics out. Like, I might be exaggerating a little bit the numbers. So they say they kick 10 and 10 out. So you figure 10 times 7, that's 70 kids that done kicked out of class because they couldn't sit still, because they had that crack in their system that you're talking about, because a lot of mamas was carrying them when they was putting that poison on them, so they can't sit still, so they kick them out. Now when it come time for them to say, well, why you always got these dimples? Well, son, I got these dimples because every time I think about you graduating from school, because I got you going to class every day, when you get out to go get that big 5-figure job, you're going to get it, no question. Well, why is that, Mom? Because you're going to get it because so many of those kids, there's 70 kids a day for 300 or 180 days a year, they was going through school. They didn't go to school.
Right.
I helped them to go through school. Okay, when they was going to class, they showed their butt, I kicked them out of class. So now when it comes time for you to go get that job, you a shoe-in. You know why you a shoe-in? Because you're going to have your degree, and they ain't going to have qualifications to get in the front door, much more to go sit down for an interview.
Right.
Okay? So, son, this is why I'm smiling, because your security is bonded. These kids ain't bonded at all.
Right.
That's why they have personalized, in modern day, we got personalized prisons now. It ain't like the state or the federal government have run the prison. They issuing it out, and they ain't issuing it out in your neighborhood.
Yeah, they private.
Okay?
Right.
They ain't in your situation. Nobody came to you and said to you, man, you want to put stock into this private institution that we have? They go into their cousins and their uncles and their brothers and their sisters.
Right.
And who are they using to bring us in the fold?
Right.
Us. And then what did they do? They went and got the record industry. See, you take off the rap, because if you sit back and think about when you guys were youngsters, brother here, Carlton, you know, Kenny, about when we were youngsters and rap came out, they used to rap on the East Coast and the West Coast about historical factors. East Coast was rapping about black history. West Coast black rap was about what was happening in their environment, live in their neighborhood with the police and everything. They went back and got these individuals and told the record industry, said, we need to change the flavor. Why do we need to change the flavor? We need to change the flavor because we got a whole new paradigm. What's that new paradigm? The new paradigm is we're going to leave the state penitentiaries and make them private institutions now. Now, how are we going to fill these private institutions? We got to change the flavor from educational rap to gangster rap. And everybody hear gangster rap after a while, you want to be a gangster. The girls, I don't want no straight guy, I want a bad boy. So now you talk about the girls that influence them even that much more? And you look at the ratio of kids going to the prisons now opposed to what was happening 40 years ago. It's all a ploy, man. It's a game.
So you saying that the music industry is directly affected by an agenda? I'm on the fence about that, but like I'm with you because I had a man named Scarface. I don't know if you know who he is, Scarface. Brad Jordan on here. He was saying the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a joke, and it's not hard to figure out if you sit back and you evaluate what's happening right before your eyes.
So I actually had a conversation with my father about this just the other day, man, and it's disheartening because I'm getting to the point, like, so the era that I grew up in is kind of like what you said. There were a lot more socially conscious rappers out there, brothers who controlled popular demand in rap music, and nowadays what's pop, aka popular, is detrimental to our people, and I'm having a hard time intellectually defending the genre that I grew up to love. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's getting to the point now where, like, I feel like I'm getting to be that old head where I don't feel like I'm hating on the younger generation, but I'm just like, what the fuck are we doing? You feel me?
Right.
And it's excuse my language, man. I'm passionate about it though. It's just something that bothers me. And so, like, as an older man, that's a legend. What would you give the advice to somebody who wants to make some change in that arena?
Well, look, man, let's just stop the train.
All right.
Let's back the train up.
All right.
Now, like, if you sit back and you say, what's the deal with me being on the train? I can see everything going if the train is running at its normal speed. I can look out the window, man. I can say, shit, I want to buy that piece of land over there. I want to build me a house over there, man. I think I could get a heliport over here. It gives you some sort of consciousness as to where you're going to go one day.
Right.
But think about that same train when they turn the speed up. You understand? Now you on the bullet train.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you can't see shit but flashes. Okay? And that's what's happening with this industry. Everybody think that I'm down, I'm hip, because I'm in the industry. But your ass ain't nothing but a pawn in the industry. When you sit back, you say, well, why did that Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube, why did they rise to the top? Why do you think they rose to the top?
Me personally?
You personally.
Okay, so I think there are different reasons. I think Ice Cube rose to the top because he brilliantly marketed what they would call gangster rap, and he kind of started the movement, but he did it in a socially conscious way. So he was saying fuck the police, but he was highlighting issues in our communities, and people resonated with that.
Well, Chuck D highlighted issues.
Well, I'm saying, I ain't saying nobody did it before him.
But what I'm saying is, why not Chuck, and why Ice Cube?
Well, I think Ice Cube did it at a level that it was louder. It was more. I think it was more. I would think it was more aggressive.
No, you know what happened?
Oh, talk to me.
Somebody came up to Ice Cube and said to him, "Man, I got a question. Someone sent me to ask you a question." Okay. And you know what the question is? No. It's a very simple question, but it's a very powerful question. The question is, what do you want? And you look at him and say, well, because if you sit back, you think about Ice Cube and Ice-T. They were talking about what was happening in the hood. Ice Cube was talking about what was going down with the police. Ice-T came out with this rap called Cop Killer.
Right.
All of a sudden, they took Ice Cube and they said to him, what do you want? Now, when you ask a young black man, what do you want? We ain't never thought about what we want. Anybody never came to us and even approached us about what you want. So you studying. And while you studying, they say to you, man, you can have the largest house on the hill. You can have the car of your choice in your driveway. And you can have millions of dollars in your bank account. Well, what do I need to do? You can read, can't you? Read the script. We're going to give you the script. Okay? That's the difference. One individual says no. Other individual says, okay. Okay? Now, I know this for a fact because they came to me to try and buy me a couple of times. You can't buy me, and my attitude is this. If you're going to buy me, I can't be concerned about all the black people in the world. I said, but I'm concerned about black people. So let me be concerned about the black people up and down my block. If you want to offer me the big house, cool. Offer them the big house. You want to give me the pool in the yard? Give them the pool too. Why? It's because I don't want to be the one that always had to serve them and cater to them. I would like to go to their house and let them serve and cater to me too. You understand? Mm-hmm. And that's the difference in me looking out for us as a whole or me looking out for me. If somebody come to you and put it in your head and say, you could have X, Y, Z, read the script. And then what did they do with Ice Cube, Ice-T? They said, man, Cop Killer, we got something for you. So what has he been for the last 20 years?
Been on a couple TV shows, man.
Huh?
He been nothing but a cop. You right.
Hey. So what does that
That's
do?
called irony.
What does that do for you as a young individual following him from what you see here and then what he's playing, the role that he's playing for so long now?
Right.
So it's a game being played, and I look at it like this: when they play a game, and incidentally talking about game, there's a lot of us on this planet that don't even realize that we in a game. Understand? It's called the game of life. It ain't like you go out there and say, I'm going to sign with the Dodgers, or maybe I'm not going to sign with the Dodgers. That's your choice. But this game of life, it ain't no choice. Your ass is pushed into the shit. Okay?
Right.
Now, how are we going to win the game when most people don't even know they're in the damn game?
Right.
And then the few that do know they're in the game, they don't know shit about rules of the game. How are we going to win? How are we gonna win when we so fragmented, man? We dealing with the slave issue. We dealing with the drug issue. We dealing with unemployment. We dealing with uneducated. You understand? And then you sit back, here's something for you to think about right now. When you sit back and think about why is every race on the planet can come together and bond to buy this building, or to buy that bank, or to take over IBM. And we as people of color, blacks in particular, we can't get together to go buy a damn tablet for a kid. Mm-hmm. Why? Because when we was in school, the first thing the teacher told you when you was in grade school, here's a piece of paper, here's some paint. You get in there and you start finger painting. Oh, I like this. This is something new. I like this finger painting in grade kindergarten. Now, the minute you get up to the second grade, they take the paper away and they tell you, all right, now we're going to have a spelling bee. Or we're going to have a math test. Now, you go home, you're supposed to study. Everybody don't have the same situation at home like Leave It to Beaver did. You understand? It ain't that simple.
Right.
And it's not like, in my era where if mom and dad wasn't around or if wasn't no food in the house, I can get me 50 cents, I can go down to Burger King, I can go to Jack in the Box or one of them and get me something to eat. Wasn't none of that. Mm-hmm. And then you sit back and you say to yourself, wow, man, what happened to us when they told us in the second grade, say that test coming. Say, John, look out for Kenny. Don't let Kenny see what you're putting on your paper. Cover your paper up. Make sure that he can't see your answers.
Right.
My thought is, why am I blocking Kenny? I know what Kenny's situation is at home. They might be fighting in his house. There might not be no food in his house. All kind of shit could be going on. Could be shooting around the neighborhood all night. But Kenny couldn't pass that test unless I helped him. But they're telling me don't help Kenny. Who am I going to have a business association with other than Kenny? Understand? Mm-hmm. So my idea is to help Kenny, but they've been telling me, no, block it from Kenny. So we grew up with that whole syndrome running through our minds that we can't help one another. We can't let you see how much money I have. Like that's going to take something away from you if I see that you're capable of doing some business with me.
Right.
Okay? And until we get by these pitfalls that they put on us, man, we just like that dog chasing his tail. At the end of the day, you know how it was. See, we tired as hell, but we never caught the tail.
Right.
Spinning our wheels.
I'm gonna jack that one. That's nice, man. So it's frustrating to see all the. I mean, to see it and live through it because I did answers, man. Like, what are the answers?
Well, let me say something, man. We as black people have to start looking at this. Like, my man came out with a quest for law and order to stop killing black people. Okay? And they're trying to put a spin on talking about he's unpatriotic and this and that. It ain't even about the flag. Only difference with the flag.
Who you talking about?
I'm talking about Mr. Kaepernick.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The only difference with the flag is this. Same difference why, I could have did this demonstration in Central Park. I could have did it out in front of the Yankee Stadium.
Right.
Or the Apollo. But was I going to get as much juice in front of the Yankee Stadium or the Apollo as I would have gotten on the victory stand at the Olympic Games?
Right.
No. And where everybody's going to be tuned in when they got Old Glory blowing.
Right.
Okay? If he did it inside the football stadium, the 49er stadium, a few people might see it. Right. But on the other side of the world, they wasn't going to see it. Mm-hmm. You understand? So he has to use the vehicle that's going to give him the most visibility. That's what demonstration is all about, man, to be the lightning rod on the other side of the world. Right. Okay? So when you sit back and you look at it and you say, well, how many people in the community came into his aid. I came to his aid.
Yeah.
I see some other noted people came to his aid.
Right.
But I'm supposed to be standing in the back of 10,000 people. Because everybody in the community can relate to police coming in and killing black people.
Right.
Okay? Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I don't think nobody could deny that. But see, when you sit back and you say, well, they killed him, and some of them might have been justifiable, but all of them are not justifiable.
Right.
You gonna kill a man because he's selling some loose cigarettes that people been doing in New York forever? You gonna kill another man by taking him, beating him down, and throw him in the back of the paddy wagon, don't strap him down, do nothing? You gonna kill a man that's running away from your ass and you shoot him in the back 4 or 5 times? Or you gonna go to the park and see a little kid in the park playing with a cap gun? Well, where else is a kid supposed to be in the park with a cap gun? And you gonna kill him? Or you gonna go up into a house where a woman is up there with a granddaughter and you're gonna break in and kill a little baby on the sofa? And no one pays the price? And a young man gets up out of nowhere and say, man, I don't have to do this. I got $5 million in my bank account. I'm secure. But he chose to say, man, that $5 million don't mean nothing relative to the number of people that I'm trying to save. And he $5 million? I didn't have $5 when I did it. But the square is still squared the same way. We both are trying to raise our minds, our consciousness, and let them know this is a humanitarian issue, and anybody has a right to step up under that humanitarian statement. You don't have to do it on the black side, to my old black power, you the military. No, man, it's a human issue. Yeah. And what you're doing is wrong. And I'm standing against you because you're wrong, and I'm about right. You know, somebody sent an email me the other day, a brother, he was hurt. And I had to write him and tell him something. And he was saying that he was walking down the street, and there's a white man walking with him, and it was him and his wife. And the wife fell out on the ground, having a heart attack. So he jumps and tries and help the dude, and the dude tell him, get away from her, don't touch my wife, nigga, get back, don't touch my wife. And he said, look, man, if you don't let me help her, she's gonna die here. And I don't give a shit, don't you touch her.
Wow. And
he goes into the store and he brings one of the guys in the store outside, and he said, man, when he went into the store, the brother jumped right down. He said she stopped breathing, he went down to give her CPR the whole 9 yards. So when the clerk came out with the guy, and he see the guy helping her, and he said to her, he said, man, you have anybody in the store other than black that know anything about CPR? The guy told him, said, no, I don't. He said, the best thing for you is to let this man do what he do. Well, the man resuscitated the woman, brought her back. Now, he said, now he's hurt because he's trying to save this woman's life, and then he have to be subjected to all this racial abuse.
All right.
Okay? And then you sit back and you say, everybody's telling him, say, man, you was a hero, man, you was a heroic move, you saved that woman's life, she was gone, blah, 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 congratulating him. Everybody but the husband. The husband walks by giving the most nasty and dirtiest look in the world. This is the type of shit that we up against.
Right.
I have a situation one time, and my oldest daughter was born. And I'm a young kid. I think I was 20, 21, 22 years old. And I go to the grocery store to get some milk for my daughter this night. And it was 3 white boys, it was actually 4 of them, but 3 of them was kicking and stomping on one on the ground. So when I go in the store and I see them kicking on the dude, so I stop what I'm doing and grab them and pull them off and back off them, you know. And I expect them to get out of line. But the one that was being stomped and kicked, he looks at me and said, nigga, why don't you mind your own business? How you respond to something like that? First of all, you hurt because you're doing the right thing, the humanistic thing to try and save somebody, and the one you're trying to save is putting you down just based on the color of your skin. So these are things, man, that it's affecting us in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, like I think that's a lot of the points to that. I think like a lot of the statisticians are missing from the actual like the numbers they like to pull up, and I think it's those anecdotal stories in social science that just snowballs after years of verbal, mental, and physical abuse, and it makes people snap.
Well, you look at it like this, man. You know, like they talk about, well, what do you do to change things? I say, man, the first thing you have to do to change anything is to go to the government, to the federal government, and tell them, say, man, now it's time to pee or get off the pot. And so what do you mean pee or get off the pot? the first thing you need to do if you were serious about saying you want to change the complexion of this society, you want to try and make it a more even society, I say the first thing you got to do is stop and mandate every school in America take all their history books and the science books and throw all that shit in the trash. Burn that shit and start out from scratch and start telling the real truth about who did what and why they did it and what happened to them along the way as they did it. You see? How are you going to teach our kids anything and they go to school for 12 years and they know more about someone else's culture than they know about themselves? Mm-hmm. You know, that's why I made the statement earlier about my man go to the mirror every day to brush his teeth and wash his face, but he never got in touch with that guy in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And then when he did get in touch with him, he find, I don't like the guy. How you going to not like yourself? Well, you don't like yourself, man, based on what's being put upon you. I'm sure every black man in the world would like to get up and go to job. I'm sure everybody black want to go and have a decent salary. But they tell you, say, when I was coming through, hey, man, you need to go back to school. And then they say, oh, okay, well, let me fight, man, because they ain't letting too many of us in school. But I just got by, man. I got this special program, and I got in, and I went, and I got my piece of paper. Let me go back now and apply at that job. He told me that I need to go back to school. Oh, man, that's great. I see you got your piece of paper, but man, we still can't hire you. Mm. Well, why you can't hire me now? Man, we can't pay you. You're overqualified. Okay? So it was like you damn if you do, you damn if you don't. Right. These are the games that we had to go through then. It's not as much, but it's a slide like that now as it was back then. Right. Now they just tell you, nah, we ain't hiring you. Simple as that. Right. We don't have to give you no excuse. And then you sit back and you think about, you know, number 45 up there in the White House. He's definitely trying to crack it back to 1890. Okay? Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I mean, you sit back, you look at all the black ministers. They had them from Texas. They had them from New York, New Jersey, California. All of them flocked around him like he's Tarzan. Okay?
I understand that.
Well, you go back and do the research.
No, I said I don't understand that.
They had them all around him. Okay? And then after he got done with them, he said, well, let's go to all the BCU schools. Let's go to all the black colleges. And they circle around him too. Mm-hmm. And you answer my question right now, and I'll eat that light bulb. What have they done, the 45, what has he done for those black ministers? What has he done for the black universities to this day? What has he done for Jim Brown? Okay, Jim Brown went up in his office. Yeah. What has he done for Quincy Jones? Quincy Jones went up in his office. What has he done for Steve Harvey? All these dudes went up in there just like them black ministers. So my thing is, who's the pimp and who's the pimpy?
The pimpy.
Okay? He looked like he just pimped everybody. All right. Now, I was on a show not too long ago, and I made this statement about, 45, and I said to him, you waving the flag of patriotism, because your brother's taking a knee, and you talk about they're unpatriotic. I said, I remember when you were running for office, when Barack was running for office, and you came out as a citizen and said that you didn't think that Barack was a legalized citizen of this country. Mm-hmm. You wrote him down for 8 months, 12 months with that. You made him produce a birth certificate. I said, now, here's John Carlos on CNN right now as an American citizen challenging you. I said, Mr. 45, show me your discharge papers from the military. Show me your father's discharge papers from the military. Show me your son's discharge papers from the military. I can show you mine. You understand? I said, and you sit back and talk all this smack. I said, but you had 5 deferments. Now, I don't want to go into why you was deferred, but I know you had 5 of them. The first time you didn't go. The second time you didn't go, the third time you didn't go, and then talking about something was wrong with your foot. Then when they asked you about your foot, you didn't even remember what foot it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be damaged. Okay? So these are the type of things that we sit back and we laugh like we're doing now and let them slide on by. It's time for us as black people to start challenging them. We'll never be able to beat them with no gun. If I got a 38, they got a Glock. I get a Glock, man. They got a Uzi. I get a Uzi. They got a bazooka. I get a bazooka. They got a cannon. You understand? I get a cannon. They got a bomb. I get a bomb. They got a nuclear bomb. So we ain't gonna never win like that. But I can make a man jump out the window from my mind. And that's what we need to do as people of color, is to start getting a lot more intelligent and start testing them now. You know, in our life and time, there's one thing for sure, and you know what that is? There's no more room for neutrality. There's no more, I'm neutral, I'm on the fence, I don't know which way to go. Either your ass is with the program or you against the program. And that's what our problem been all along. Half of us want to be, you know, I don't know which way to go, I'm going to ride the fence. And until we make up our minds and realize, man, it ain't about me. It ain't about you, brother. It ain't about you. Know who it's about?
We.
It's about your offsprings. What you doing right now, man, to make change ain't going to affect your life one way or another, man, but you making change to make sure that your kids, when they come through at your age, they don't have to go through the same shit, because our shit been repetitious. Every year it's the same shit. It might be a different color, but it's the same shit every year. Okay? And the only way we're going to break it is when we wake up in our minds and say, what's my purpose here on this earth? I'm going to leave you with that.
Man, I appreciate it, man.
All right, man.
The gems.
Skip my NASA shirt, because I got to take that shit to the moon,
No, I
too.
got you, man. I got you, man. Hold on, before you dip on me, man. Can I ask you one more question, bro?
Sure.
I'm sorry, man. It was about, so I just wanted to talk about that man that's on the number 2 spot that I don't ever think.
Peter.
He doesn't get enough due for the things that he did and what he went for. His name is Peter Norman. And could you explain, just give it a brief background about him and what he did?
He's not worthy of just a brief background. If I'm going to talk, I'm going to really talk.
Yeah,
about
I hear
the
you.
man.
I hear you,
Okay?
man.
I met Peter Norman in 1966, I think, 66, 67.
All right.
Yeah, I went to Australia. I didn't know shit from Shinola. I get over there, man, it's just a trip. You know, prior to that, I didn't know about no trip, get in the car and drive up to Buffalo, New York,
Right.
you know, with about 10 guys stuffed in a Chevy. But I got this trip to Trinidad. I mean, that blew me away, first of all, to go to Trinidad and to see a country that was black-owned and everything was black, from the president on down to the janitor. I mean, I loved it. So I said, okay, I don't want to go no place other than Trinidad. Yeah, every summer, just send me to Trinidad. I don't want to go to Europe, nowhere. But they pushed me out and told me, you have to go. So then I got a chance to go to Australia. And when I went to Australia, my attitude is, at that time, being young, I had to have me a woman to keep me in check. So I always catch me a cutie, and I tell her, I say, you know, as long as I'm in this country, you my wife. Okay? That way I ain't got to play the field, none of that. But I always made sure that I found out where the best food was and who was the sponsor, because I'm going to wine and dine this woman. If she got a kid, I'm going to wine and dine, make sure they're going to have some stuff that they ain't never had if they with me. And that's for anybody. If you rolling with me, you going to get off the top, because I ain't going to accept nothing less.
My man.
So, only person that don't score is Kenny Banks. and he need to check himself and find out why he ain't scoring. So anyway, you know, getting back to this deal here, when I earned this trip to Trinidad, not Trinidad, but to Australia, I found this woman, and I told her, I said, listen, I said, Mom, here, it's me and you. I said, what I need you to do is take me and show me the Aboriginal people. She was an Aboriginal girl. Show me them. I said, I don't want to see them in the store. I don't want to see them. I said, take me underground and let me understand. Let me learn. And I was freaked out because they were blacker than black and they had orange eyes, yellow eyes. I was freaked out about that, first of all, because I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life. Mm-hmm. Okay? Then I began to look at their culture. Then I began to learn their history. And in terms of learning their history, I began to learn the history of the Australian people, how they formed Australia and took it from the Aboriginals. You know, most of the Australian people that was there was the criminals in England. And the Queen gathered all the criminals up and said, we ain't going to kill you off, but we're going to send you off. And they sent them over there to Australia. And they went in there and inhabited the land and said, oh, here's some more savages, as they called us in America. And boom, took over the land. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking this and I'm finding about the Queen. The Queen had an island called Queen's Island. And they will inhabit the young kids from these Aboriginals. And they'll take them away from their parents. The parents may never see them again. They take them, they raise them to be a gardener, or they raise them to be a chauffeur, or they raised him to be the cook or what have you. Send them back to school. That's my people right there. So then when you sit back and you start thinking about what was going on, and I start looking at the country in terms of what I knew about South Africa and what I'm seeing here in Australia, wow, it was so parallel. And the whole overall picture, and I'm seeing this as a youngster when I was over there. And then to have an opportunity to run into a guy named Peter Norman. Now, Peter was a heck of an athlete, but I didn't know Peter. You know, he had his game, I had my game. But I went there, I was on the better part of my game that day. I won up everything I was supposed to win, and I came on back. So now we go to the Olympic Games, man, and you know, we going through the rounds and so forth. And I see this guy running, and we in the same heat, and I roll on by, and you're easing through the tape, and I looked at him because he was coming, you know, I looked at him after we got to the tape and said, man, you ain't nothing. And I'm walking, I got this good peripheral vision, and he whipping back at me, tell me I ain't nothing. So I turn around, who is this dude? And then I liked the fact that he was a white guy, and he had heart. So I started watching him a little bit. So the homeboy do have some goods. But I didn't go there to Mexico City to win the gold medal. I went there to win a medal to get on the victory stand. That was my game. Now, I was giving that race to Tommy Smith, but at the same time, I anticipated taking second. But I forgot about Peter Norman. I'm so telling Tommy, if you want this medal, stop bullshitting and come on, because he got a growing muscle pull and all that, like I just saw him that day.
So you gave him the gold, you saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me?
But let me tell you something.
Now talk to me.
I can go get, it was probably 200 athletes there in track and field. I can go get 200 of them gold medals that they got and let you take them to the pawn shop. And I'll wait to see how much you bring back. Okay? So what I'm saying is, what they put down and give you a gold medal that time, man, that wasn't the goal. The goal was who was in the back in that Brinks truck, loading the truck up.
Well,
that was the goal.
I'm with you.
So I ain't going for the medal trick. You understand? The carrot they put. Because if you sit back and you think about us as youngsters, they train us, man, to be that person in the arena. You understand? To gather that money for them.
Right.
I don't care what venture it is, what football, basketball, baseball, Olympics, what have you. Don't matter. They train us to be it. And they got their leader sports, like swimming. They thought that we wouldn't cross into the water, but we done broke into that. The only sport that they holding us back from now is equestrian, because we don't have enough money to feed the horses and train the horse. But we're going to break into that soon, too. But in any case, when I was there and I ran into Peter at the games, and I'm seeing his game, and I'm learning to respect his talents. But when we got down to decisions about the demonstration and so forth, nobody knew but myself, Tommy Smith, and God. And then once we got all the artifacts and everything together after the final race, then we was in the tunnel, preparing for how we was going to go out there and so forth. And Peter Norman says, what are you guys doing? What are you blimey guys doing over there? And I said to him, I said, man, I got a question for you. He said, what's that? I said, do you believe in human rights? And he looked at me and he told me, he said to me, he said, John, my mother and father were human rights, civil, what do they call them, Salvation Army workers all my life. Of course I know about human rights. I said, would you like to wear an Olympic Project for Human Rights button? He said, sure. And he went to take mine off my jersey. And I, man, get back. I'll get you one. You don't touch this one. So I got the button. One of the guys, I think, one of the guys from the Harvard rowing team, which was some white boys, some hippies, but real good people, man. And one of them threw a button down to me. And I put it on Peter and went out there. But, you know, it took a lot of courage, first of all, for the environment in which he grew up. Okay, with the segregation and prejudice they had in Australia, for him to come to the Olympic Games and say, I'm going to team up with two black guys. Okay, so now he wore the button. We celebrated the whole 9 yards, and then when we split and we go home, and I tell the people this every day, I say in America, man, they had an opportunity to beat up on John Carlos, say we tired of beating on John Carlos, go find that other guy, Tommy Smith, beat up on Tommy. When they beating up on Tommy, I get a rest. When they beating up on me, he get a rest. But when they beat up on Peter Norman in Australia, he got beat down 24/7, 365 with no rest. When nobody over there take no lumps for him. But Peter never flinched. He never stepped backwards. He never denounced us. And all they told him, said, Peter, all you have to do is just denounce them. Just whisper. Oh, they put me up to it. But Peter was a man's man while he was alive, and he became even more of a man's man in death. Now, you sit back and you say, well, here's a guy that wasn't recognized. Peter Norman wasn't recognized. Well, if you sit back and you say, well, John Brown wasn't recognized either. You familiar with John Brown?
I'm not familiar with
John Brown was an abolitionist, and John Brown was Frederick Douglass' right-hand man.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
Now, when John Brown went to support Frederick Douglass and Harper's Ferry, you need to go back to school and check this now.
Oh, man.
When he went back and kind of coerced with Frederick Douglass, they hurry up and blackballed him.
Right.
Okay? They took him out of the history, didn't want kids to know about him in school, didn't put no movies up, didn't do no documentaries, none of that. Then you sit back and you say, well, Dag, the same thing they did to John Brown, the modern day John Brown was Peter Norman. They did the same thing. I didn't take him out of the picture. I didn't stop talking about him for 49 years. They wiped him out of the picture. They stopped talking about him. Okay? And then if you sit back and let's move it up a little more and say what's happening in the NFL right now with the brothers taking a knee, they got a lot of white boys out there in support of them brothers. Mm-hmm. The same way they knocked John Brown out, the same way they knocked Peter Norman out, is the same way they knocking these white athletes that's in support of you. But it's our responsibility to step up to the plate and speak when it's time to speak. It's time to speak when they trying to knock Kaepernick down. Everybody in the neighborhood should be speaking. When they try and knock these white boys that they come in to support you, it's your responsibility to step up and give them their due too. You understand? Because they stand to lose a lot by supporting you, by standing there with you. But we seem like we don't realize that we in this game, and this game is to be won, man. It ain't be just say, I'm in the motion. I'm out here to win this shit. And people threaten my life. I tell them, I say, man, I had no problem about dying because, shit, I'm going to die one day anyway. I said, but if you think about taking me before God is ready for me, I said, let me just say you this. You made a mistake. And you know why they made a mistake? Why you think they made a mistake? Because they let me see their face. And you know what that implies?
What's that mean, man?
If I see your face and I go before your ass wherever I go, I can wait for you, huh? Shit ain't over.
OG Robin Hood, man.
Hey, and incidentally, talking about Robin Hood, I was really hurt, man. My business partner was born in England.
Okay.
Actually, he was born in Nottingham, England. And we went over there when I did my book, and I went over there on book signing. He went with me. And I said to him, I said, man, where's Nottingham? They really have a forest, Nottingham Forest? He said, yeah. I said, man, no, Nottingham. He said, no, really, I was born there. And I'm looking at him, man, I thought you was a Canadian. He said, no, I was born here in Nottingham. So I said, okay, I'll tell you what. When we get back, man, we go through Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest is like Central Park, right, 3 times over. Mm-hmm. So we get there, we go into town. So I said to him, I said, look, Mark, I want to go see Robin Hood. I know they got a statue of Robin Hood, right? He said, oh, yeah, they got the statue. So when we got there, it was pitch black. We couldn't see nothing. So we said, all right, man, we cut it off. The next day we come back. Man, the statue was, if I'd have just stuck my hand out, I'd have hit him. But when I saw the statue the next day, I was in a state of shock. Why you think I might have been in a state of shock? See, when I saw Robin Hood as a kid, Robin Hood was a gallant white boy, Earl Flynn. Okay? Right. But you know who the depiction of Robin Hood over there in this statue? Friar Tuck. You remember how Friar Tuck looked?
I don't remember how Friar Tuck looked.
You know that little fat stubby guy? Well, that was the original Robin Hood. So when I saw that, I started asking people, I said, let me ask you a question, man. Is Robin Hood real or is Robin Hood a myth? So some people talk, well, I don't really know. I don't know whether Robin Hood is real or not. So then I left there with the thought Robin Hood must have been black. Okay? Because, I mean, that's the only one I would have heart to say I'm against the sheriff. You ain't going to scare me. But if you don't know whether he's right or they're real or not, then he got to be me on the real side. Right? All right, boss, we ready?
Man, I wish I could keep you longer, man, but I know you got things to do.
Well, you got me tomorrow. You can be on that panel tomorrow.
Yeah,
right?
but it ain't my rodeo, man.
No, it's gonna be your rodeo because I'm gonna be pushing all the stuff to you
Hey,
tomorrow.
man, I got you. I'm gonna hold you down. Last thing, I promise this last thing, and I have to do this. So every podcast we end the same way, man. I appreciate you coming on. You are a legend and an icon, and ain't nobody gonna fill that seat like you did, bro. But we ended it the same way every time. So you know who Jim Carrey is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Jim Carrey, I'm trying to get him on. So every person that comes on, we try to coerce him to come on my podcast, man. So if you could look in that camera and try to get him on, man, I highly appreciate it. And your voice is bigger than everybody else.
Hey, look, Jim, this is a far worthy show. There's so many people out there that's starving for knowledge. Obviously, if they're trying to bring you back like that magnet, they're trying to draw you back in, it's because you have some true gift to give to society. This is a vehicle here these young men are putting out to those individuals just looking to fill the voids in their mind. Step up and do the job that God sent you here to do. Make this date.